Okay, so these are the ones that were missed the most. First one here just asks you only for slope. I don't know how this could have been missed the most, but it was one of the ones missed the most frequently. When we're given 2 points, how do we find slope? We're being given 2 points. Yes. That has a name. What's the name of that formula that's used to find slope? Well, Crystal, your seat is over here. You never asked me. Oh, there's like this formula that's used to find slope. Oh, what's it called? It's like a formula for. Oh, that's right. It's called slope formula. Yeah. And slope formula tells you that y1 minus y2 x1. I even tried to give you a way of avoiding mistakes that told you, hey, what's the first y you see? What is the first y you see? It is -3. So just write that the same. Well, what's the second y you see? A 1. Change the sign to a -1. What's the first x you see? Yeah. So you write that the same. And then what's the second x you see? And the second one of both the x's and y's, you change the sign. So m is equal to -4. Excuse me, over 7. That can't be divided. It can't be reduced. Oh man, something went on the wrong too. Any questions there? Gotta hydrate. No questions? Parag? Okay. Now we get into the kind of meat and potatoes of this. I would say this is probably what's going to show up on the test the most tomorrow, is knowing how to write equations, specifically in slope-intercept form. So in order to be able to write an equation in slope-intercept form, what do I need to find? Slope and y-intercept. Well, the vary is what they start you with. Jordan, what are they starting you with here? Not the numbers. I can read the numbers. What are they starting with? What do those numbers mean? You okay, Hiram? Canorians? They are starting you with a point. That's good. And what else? And the slope. So guess what? One of the things I need, I already have. I already have the slope. What am I missing? The y-intercept. I showed you 2 ways in which you can find it. There's one way that I kind of stick to the most, which is to use point slope. I'm taking advantage of the fact that they've given me a point and a slope. So I'm going to first use point slope, but then turn that into slope intercept. But there is a way to go straight into slope intercept. It's not really that I think one way is superior. They're just different, and I prefer to stick to one. So the way I do it is I write the y first. Crystal, what's the y of the point they gave me? -4. So change the sign and write +4. Daniel. Then comes the equal sign. What comes next? The slope. Then point slope has parentheses. Go ahead, Daniel. Finish it off. After the parentheses always comes the x. And then what's the x of the point? -3, but change the sign. The one thing that point slope and slope intercept both have in common is that they both have negatives in the formula. So what a negative in the formula causes to happen is whatever comes after that negative has to change sign. So see, this is point slope, which is more conducive to the point and the slope they gave me, but I have to turn that into slope intercept. So all I got to do is remove the parentheses and isolate the y. Instead, how am I going to get rid of the parentheses? How? What's that called? Jonathan, you know?
No.
You can't knock the hustle?
No.
Distribute, good. 3x plus 9. One more step, minus 4 on both sides. And then all the children rejoice because y equals.
How do you minus the 5?
How did I minus the 5?
Why do you twist the 9?
Where do you see minus the 5?
Oh, you minus the 4.
Hmm?
Why did you minus the 4?
Because the foe was positive.
Okay.
B. If you did it a different way, and oh, but look, when I put it into y equals mx plus b, I got something different. If you don't understand the way I did it and you want me to do it a different way, raise your hand. If not, I'm going to keep on going through. Yeah, Hiram. The other way is to plug it straight into y equals mx plus b. Where now, you see there's no negatives in this formula, so I don't have to change any signs. I would put the -4 where the y goes. I would still put the 3 where the m goes. I would put the -3 where the x goes. And then the b is what I'm looking for. You want me to draw arrows for you? Here, arrow time. That's why they pay me the big bucks. All right. Substitute. And that leaves the b. That's what I want to find. So -4 is equal to -9 plus b plus 9 plus 9. And I still get that my y-intercept is 5. But see, the reason why I don't like this method is because then the kids stop here. And then it's wrong. You were asked to write an equation and you didn't do so. It is wrong. But then the kid still wants me to give him credit. Oh, but look, but hey, I got the slope, I got the y-intercept. Yeah, but you didn't answer the question because people forget and they stop here. If you do it this way, yeah, you got the y-intercept, but you got to finish by not writing the equation and saying y equals, was it 3x plus 5. Either way, you end up with the same thing. There's no other way to do it. You got to do one of the two. Any questions? Okay, slope intercept form. What are they giving you here? Yeah, so actually this is going to end up being like a hybrid of the first two problems that we did. Because they still want the equation in slope intercept form, but unlike the one I just finished doing, they're not giving me slope. So that's what I'm going to have to find first, just like I did on the first problem. And then after that, I'm going to have to find y-intercept like I did on the second problem. Kayla, how am I going to find slope? Slope formula, yes. Subtract the y's. So the first y is 8, change the sign of the second y, so plus 8. The first x is -5, change the sign of the second x to +3. That gives me 16 over -2, and that's -8. Hey, look, Mr. Romero, I've been able now to eliminate one of these, so at least now it's down to 3. Can I just guess? No. Show me that you know how to find both. Is that confusion face? Confused. Yeah, and Elizabeth, right? You're confused, no? You can't see. Oh. You want to say closer than that? You want to switch with Ariana? I don't think Ariana likes sitting there. So. Jonathan would sit outside with nature. So now when it comes time to find the y-intercept, unlike the last problem, instead of one point I can pick from, I have 2 points. So Elena, right, Elena? Because you confused with your sister. So Elisa's your sister, then you're Elena? Okay. I'll let you pick. Pick whichever point you want. You get the same answer, you get right. All right, so you want to use -5 here. So let's use this. So y. Elena, what would I write after the y? That's the point you picked. No, because you got to change the sign. You're going to use, I like to use point slope. So change the sign -8 equals. Jasmine, what's the slope? Looking at you right. Huh? -8. After the parentheses x. There you go. And if you know how to do that, then the only thing you have to know how to do after that is there's nothing else to memorize. So all you gotta do now is just know how to solve. This is the math part. Y minus a is equal to -8x minus 40. Higher them, and you do +8, because it's a -8, and it's not 48.
You think 40?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's good.
-40 plus 8 is -32.
Oh.
4 out of 5 calculators agree. So it ended up being D. I. No other questions? Speak up. If you don't know what I'm doing, speak up. Okay. This one surprised me. I really didn't think that this was gonna be one of the ones missed the most, but it was. Maybe because I think this one was like a gridded response one. But early this morning I asked this question and I heard crickets. Like I didn't get much of a reply. And what I find interesting, right, is what's the go-to excuse? If you're not doing too well in a math class, what's the go-to excuse? Well, okay, yeah, there are the teacher excuses, sure. Oh, the teacher didn't teach, and I don't like the teacher, but in many cases, just as much as that, I hear, oh, but I'm not good at math, I'm not good at math. I hear that all the time, right? The question that I asked this morning is just, what form is that in? So before you answer that, let me ask you, how much math is involved? If you are somebody who in your mind claims that the reason why you're doing poorly is you've never been good at math, how much math is involved in me asking you what form that's in? 0. I would say 0. I would argue 0. Because if you consider math to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, I have not asked you to do anything. I could pick somebody off the street, teach them the 3 forms, and if they just go home and study, they should be able to identify. I haven't asked you what to do with it, what to find, just ask you what form. Even if you were to guess, if you were to memorize the 3 forms, and even if you were to guess, you would have a 33% chance of guessing right, because only 3 forms. Yet this morning I asked that question, and other than snores, I heard nothing. Andrew, do you know what form that's in? It's a hard one. Prof? It is good, standard form, very good. He's quiet, but he's listening, that's good. So, standard form is misleading because it sounds like it's common, but it's the least useful of the forms. There's not much that can be gathered, but the one thing that it is decent for is finding the intersection. If you were asking, what is standard form good for? Okay, fine, finding the intercepts. And not only is it easy enough for that, I made it even easier by giving you a little formula to remember. Or I told you that the x-intercept is just going to be c over a, and the y-intercept is just going to be c over b. So as long as you know how to identify a, b, and c, I would have taken care of all the hard part for you. Hiram, what's A?
A is H.
A is H? The number that's in front of the x, the coefficient. It is 1. What's B? -6. What's C? I would still argue there has not been one math question. Yeah, I didn't say maybe there's numbers involved. There's really been no math. Now comes the math. So now, if you tell me that you're bad at math, then yes, this would be the first time where you have an excuse. Or if you tell me, hey, Mr. Romero, I don't know what 12 divided by 1 is, then fine, you can say that you're not good at math. If you can tell me, hey, Mr. Romero, I don't know what 12 divided by -6 is, then yes, maybe you might have something to say that math is not your thing. That's the first math part of the question. Right, Andrew? 7 out of 8 Andrews agree. This one was, I believe, gridded response, so you would have just found those two numbers. But let's say this would have been like multiple choice, and instead of giving it to you in this format, they ask you for it in the form of an ordered pair. So, Kirsten, what would an x-intercept of 12 look like as an ordered pair? Charles? Say it again? 12 comma? Ariana, you have a question or an answer? Okay, how about you give me the y then? You okay? You hear yourself dancing? It's too much popping and not enough locking. That's the problem. No questions? Okay. Hey, look at that. Again, write an equation in slope-intercept form. I've seen the test for tomorrow. I would say this is what shows up the most. There's no functions. There's quite a bit of functions, but you guys actually did pretty good with the functions yesterday, like function test, vertical line test, looking at a map. That's why I have a couple function problems here, but most of those went pretty good yesterday. So for the what, 5th time now today? What do we need in order to? Yeah, 5th time. This is number 5. What do we need in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form? Slope-intercept form. What do I need to find? Slope and y-intercept. Well, what changes is what they give you. See, here they're giving you a graph, and what I taught you on the notes or the original time is when they give you a graph, it counts the same as if they gave you 2 points, which is like the one we did 2 problems ago. They gave you 2 points, and they've been nice enough to actually highlight the 2 points. So really, you could just treat this one like you did that last example, but this would be -3, 5, and this would be 5, -3. But if you want to be even more clever, you might be, if you know what you need slope and y-intercept, maybe you can steal one of them. It's okay, I promise I won't tell anybody. What can you sometimes just steal by looking at the graph? The y-intercept, but you got to be careful. You got to make sure, because if this y-intercept is kind of like in between the 1 and the 2, maybe you can't just assume, oh, that's 1.6, oh, it's 1.5. But this pretty clearly is passing through 0, 2. So all the 2 things I need, I was able to steal the y-intercept. What I'm still missing though is the slope. Oh yeah, look, you just count boxes. Yeah, but I prefer algebra. Do algebraic formulas. Pick any 2 points. Look, I have 3 points up here. Pick any 2 of them. I'll use the 2 that they gave me so that the problem doesn't feel bad. Let's pretend up here is the first point, and this is the second point. Muhammad, what's the first one you see? If this is the first point up here, it'd be 5. What's the second y you see? But then change the sign to +3. Angel, what's the first x you see? -3. But then change the second x, you change the sign, so what am I going to write to that? -5. So 8 over -8, my slope is -1. I now have the 2 pieces of 2 values that I needed. So Caleb's excited to report that the equation is y equals -1x, which is this -x, +2. Did you say it was Hiram?
Bay.
Bay? Yes, it was Bay. B-A-E. Bay. Any questions? You have a question or you're just waving? Deuces. Sneaky Sebastian. Hiding back there. Sebastian, for the 3rd time now today, I want to write an equation in slope-intercept form, and I'm being given 2 points. What should I find first? Jasmine? Kirsten? You even listening? I kind of, sort of, but not really. Andrew, you know what to find first? Slope. So since we've done it today a bunch of times, I'll go fast. 5 minus 2, 2 minus 9, 3 over -7, which is -3 over 7. Aha! See, some problems, you look at it and it's a head scratch, like, wow, how did they miss that one so much? But this one, I already know why you missed this one a lot. No, come on. Look at all the answers. What ugly wall are we going to run into? Fractions, no. But look. Out of all the answer choices, only one of them has a slope of -3 over 7. So there you go. No, do not rely on the fact that it's multiple choice. You need to show me evidence that you know how to find both the slope and the y-intercept, even if it involves fractions. So I have the slope. Jonathan, since you're the honorary guest today, I'll let you pick any of the 2 points. Doesn't matter which one. To find the y-intercept. It's not a trick question. I'll let you pick. And Jonathan, we trust. This is like the easiest question I've asked you all day. Like there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer here. No, they're like kids. You can't pick between your 2 sons. No. Way to chime in, man. Good job. Go ahead, Jasmine. Which one do you want to pick? Pick either 2-5 or 9-2. Whichever one you want. All right, let's use 9-2 then. So I write the y first, and then if you change the sign of the y, she picked 9-2. So I would write y minus 2 is equal to. Then comes the slope, -3 over 7, and then x minus 9. Arrow time? Yeah. Yeah. See, I don't know if I mentioned this period or last period, but there's 2 formulas that you've learned that have negatives in them, right? You learn slope formula that says y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Notice how we have a minus in both of them. You also learn point slope, which is the one I just used down in blue, that says y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1, which again has negatives. So anytime you have a formula that has a negative in it, when you substitute a number in for whatever comes after the negative, it's going to change sign. What the negative causes to do is whatever comes after, it causes to change sign. Okay, now we distribute, like all the cool kids are doing. And Hiram's doing it too. Y minus 2 is equal to 3 over 7x. Negative times negative is? Good. 3 times 9 is 27 over. Yeah, it's a decimal. We don't want that, so we're going to leave it. True that. Danielito, what do you want to do next? Isn't that your, no? Did I say that wrong? Yeah. Daniel.
What do we do next?
Well, I don't want to subtract the 2. It's a negative. Yeah, I want to add it. And because of those ugly fractions, I'm going to catch my breath and take an extra step. And I'm going to rewrite it horizontally. And we'll go ahead and write the 2 as 2 over 1 because what has to be true when you add fractions? In order to add fractions, what needs to be true? Good, it's matching denominators. So what is the least common denominator between 7 and 1? It is 7. So I'm going to write plus something over 7 plus something over 7. This 7 turns into this 7, so really what happened is that nothing changed. So the 27 stayed the same. But this 1 turned into a 7 by doing times 7. What is 2 times 7?
14.
27 and 14 is 41 over 7.
Yeah.
I ain't scared of no fractions. So you can see up here, that's why we ended up with negative 3 over 7x plus 41 over 7. And I'll show that test to his boss tomorrow. For the test, probably, I don't know in what capacity, but I mean, I wouldn't, if before the test even occurs, if you're worried about retakes, that's not a good thing. Like, I just got to this school, so I'm not sure how I know how they did it at the school I was at before, but here I think it depends on what subject is being taught. We have meetings on Monday. When you guys are at home eating breakfast, we have meetings, so I'll bring that up in the meeting. All right, here's another one that was missed quite frequently, functions. This is what you would have done before you got to me. I realize there's also words, but okay. Crystal earns $5.50 per hour mowing lawns. I think she needs to go on strike to try to make more money, but the first thing they wanted her to do is to write a rule, write a function. That's the way of saying write an equation. That equation should model the amount of money as a function of the amount of hours. So the equation is going to be for money, but money depends on hours. That's function notation. Now, what expression could she create to represent how much money she's going to make if she makes $5.50 every hour? Times, good. 550, even though you don't need the zero, but they wrote it. So 550 times 8 for hours. You'd like to mow yards? No. Then the second part of the question says, how much does Crystal earn? So that tells you they want to know money. And if they want to know money, they have to give you hours. But they really mess around with you because they give you hours and minutes. Which might be confusing to most, but when I was looking at the grades that you came in before you got to me, one of your quizzes was on something called dimensional analysis. Dimensional analysis, that's unit conversion. So see, the thing is, when I plug in here, I want to plug in for hours, but they're giving me hours and minutes. So that minute part, I want to change that to hours. So yeah, I'm going to multiply, but how do I turn minutes into hours?
Wait, can't we just put hours into minutes?
No, because the function has to be in terms of hours. Yes, I would agree with you. Normally it's easier to turn hours into minutes, but they want it in terms of hours. So how do you turn minutes to hours?
Minutes to hours? You got the plus or
Huh? No, I know you don't need to use it. That's fancy, but just can you tell me? Divide by 60. So this is the 3 full hours plus the 45 minutes divided by 60. Not that you have to write that stuff, but I want you to understand. See, and they even put this answer C in here to throw you off. If you put 3.45, you're gonna get it wrong. But what you should be putting in there, 3 plus 45 over 60 is 3.75. And this should actually say, because now I've already substituted 3.75. So the amount of money in 3.75 hours is approximately equal to 20.63. Yeah.
I use common sense.
That's why you get all the girls. That's what I've heard is that I've heard that like when they walk by you, they're like, man, look at the common sense on him. All right, here's another function. Come on, let's try to get as many done as possible. So here's the function. Yeah, well, hey, this one of the ones missed the most. Maybe because it was a short answer. I don't know. But this tells you jumping jacks. J of x is jumping jacks, and x is minutes. So look at the question. The question wants to know how many jumping jacks, which means they want to know J of x, which has to mean that they have to give me x. X is the amount of minutes. How many minutes are they giving me? 5. So J at 5 is equal to 39 times 5, and that's 195 jumping jacks. That's all you have to do. Hiram, there's no fun in math class. Stop it. More functions. This is a biggie. I pay attention to this one. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck on this example here. So here's this function g of x. I'll write it off here to the side so it's bigger. G of x is equal to x squared minus 2. So the first thing they want to know is g at negative 3. You would have done this before I got here. What is g of x the same as? When I say g of x, it's the same as y. What is x the same as? Well, x is the same as x. So when they write this in function notation and they put the negative 3 in the parentheses, they want me to put the negative 3 somewhere. Where? For x or for y? For x. So I would write g at negative 3 is equal to negative 3 squared minus 2. This is just function notation. It's just a way of writing it. By putting the negative 3 on the left, I'm not really putting it in for y, it's just a way of writing it. And when I do negative 3 squared is 9, 9 minus 2 is 7. Or sail, as the book would say. Now the difference is that to juxtapose it, here they want to know x when g of x is negative 3. So the same negative 3, where am I going to put it now?
You're going to put it as the y.
As the y. So for the second part, I would write negative 3 is equal to x squared minus 2. I'll use my solving skills, which are as handy as my ninja skills, and I get -1 is equal to x squared. How do I get rid of a square? Square root. If you happen to have a calculator out like you should have every day, what's the square root of -1? Elena, what is it? Square root of -1.
It's actually an error.
It is an error, which means that it is undefined. It cannot be done. And then the last one is the same as the first one. It's just put that 5 inside the for x. So that gives you 25 minus 2, which is yeah.
Is there a writing?
It might be. Any questions there? You're gonna get a lot of points just by knowing that how to do function notation. I'll tell you that right now. This is prominently featured on the test, so make sure. All right, now, yes.
So, which one is the answer? 7, 105, and 23?
All three. There was 3 questions. There was 3 answers. This was a 3-part question. If you remember the test yesterday, this was like a graded response where they asked you for this, they asked you for that, and they asked you for that. There was 3 answers. I even tried kind of color coding it for you. This answer goes here, here, and then here. All right, now when I was looking at the results of the practice test, I'd say the biggest concentration of what you missed the most were actually these where you had to graph. But I made the decision to leave this for the end because there's not too many of them on the test. There's not too many graphs. So I'll just try to do one of each quickly before you leave. What form? In order to know how to graph, you got to understand the forms. What form is this in? Point slope. Good. So let's take advantage of what we're being given. Come on, let me finish. What's the point that they're giving me here? What's the point? The point is 4 and -5. The x comes first. What is the slope? -2/1. Guys, there's no need to pack up. We're still gonna what? 3 minutes? Okay, so just let me finish. Find 4 -5, which is down here. Negative slopes go up, left, down, right. Up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1. Connect the dots. There's that one. I just wrote it as a fraction so that I remember what's my rise and what's my run. Here's the slope. What form is this in? No, this is slope intercept. My slope is 4/1. My y-intercept is 0, -3. So if I find -3, keep it quiet, and go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to go to the right one. You got to know where positive slopes and negative slopes go. One more just to squeeze it in. What form is this in? Standard, which there really isn't a perfect way to graph, but I gave you a shortcut. Use the intercepts. If they give you standard form, just use the intercepts. X, and this is A, B, C. The x-intercept is C/A, so that's -2, 0. The y-intercept is C/B, so 0, -4. Which one is passing by those 2 points? Should be B. -2, 0, -4 should be B. I'll end up posting whichever class I got the furthest with. If you want to go back and look at these, test is tomorrow.